Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of Inspire to Invest has been brought to you by Coast to Coast Homes and Real Power. Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have a wonderful woman named Carleen Su here with me today. And to give you a little bit of background on Carleen, she is an active real estate investor and she's been doing so full time for the past 5 years. She's also a proud mom to 3 great children. She had the opportunity to leave her corporate job, which was an 8 to 5, probably going back about 5 years ago now. And during that time, she's built up a portfolio with 85 doors, and she currently develops built for purpose rentals. So she can tell us a little bit more about the fun projects that she's got on the go. And now she's helping others achieve financial and life freedom with opportunities to invest and coaching them through her real estate firm and invest in and coaching strategies. So I'm kind of blending through that, but you can tell us all about everything that you've got going on. And ideally, maybe you can start by sharing where you were. So you were working this corporate job, you were grinding it out, doing an 8 to 5. So how did real estate investing come into the picture?
It came into the picture very early on, actually. I always had a bit of a bug in me to always do something more than just have my 9 to 5 job. At that time, you don't have a family, and I was just, I had energy to burn. In fact, I think my nickname for my friends at the time was Energy Bunny, but Energy Bunny. But I was always wanting to do more and doing things that made sense. And I also had I was kind of intuitively more about financial literacy. And so, when you have the down payment, you're like, or when you're looking at the numbers and making sense, you're like, why not hold a real estate asset? And that's how I kind of got started.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think more people need to be thinking about their financial futures. And, at the end of the day, a lot of times people look at real estate investing as very risky, but I personally think one stream of income and one source of employment is as risky as it gets. So I guess in terms of investing, so obviously you felt that this was important, but would you say there's any particular catalyst that made you think, okay, this is what I want to do now and kind of move out of the corporate world?
The catalyst really is the family. So I knew it made sense intellectually, even when I was younger.
Yeah.
But when you're working 9 to 5, and I had decent flexibility there, but still it's you're going to have to take your kids, on field trips, or I would want to, or wanting to spend extra time during the day, not just in the evenings. And that's when, real estate offered an option to do more for the family, but also have the flexibility as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that, the money's one side of it, but the other side is also taking your time back. And, obviously there can be those compromises, especially in the beginning, that it's taking time to build up and learn your systems and figure things out. But, it's the flexibility that I think, most people are after in terms of the long game, right?
Totally, right? The freedom to do the things you like, and the freedom to spend the time with the people that you want to spend time with.
Now, did you just rip the Band-Aid off and just say, okay, that's it, we're going for it? Or did you find that you were kind of straddling both sides of the fence for a while?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because I know people do wonder if they can just quit and just throw themselves in there. But no, I mean, I did it in it wasn't like a 10-year plan, but what I did was, starting in 2013, I started building, other than my first initial purchase out of university, I started building my portfolio in the 2012 to 2013 years, just adding 1 or 2 properties a year, along with my husband. And I think that really helped to provide, a base income.
Yeah.
So when you choose the right properties with cash flow, that allows you to just it allows it to be a true option, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are so scared to make that jump just because they're worried about their quality of living going down if they do have to take a salary cut or something like that. So I think that's something consistent that I've heard from a lot of other investors, is that you have to make sure that you've got some stability with your income before you obviously move over to it full time.
Yeah, I do recommend that, because you don't want the other stress. You might have freedom, but you don't want financial stress either. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about your development side? So for anyone that doesn't know the kind of work that you do, obviously you've kind of built up your portfolio, but then you got into land development kind of maybe a little long before land development has become what it is today. So maybe you can talk a bit more about that.
Well, investing for 20 years, um, I've done a lot of different strategies. I've done the renos, the fix and flips. I've done the buy and holds. I also just did my recent Airbnb. But the thing is, when you do a lot of different strategies, I can test them all out. And what I've learned in all of these years is that there also is a really there's a good strategy for a particular time in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And back in like 20, gosh, when the market was hotter around 2013, I started the buy and hold strategy when truly it was, our market was going up. And I
Yeah.
realized then that the better strategy to actually really accelerate that growth would have been to do renovations and development.
Yeah.
Here again, now we're kind of in a different, almost the same market cycle, but the market, factors are a little bit different, and we're actually really, I'm predicting we're going to see quite a bit of growth over the next few years. And so
Yeah.
um, I've taken the best of the strategies and kind of combined it together, because what I do with purpose-built rentals is you get the forced appreciation of a development, yet also the longer term gain of the buy and hold, where you get mortgage pay down and a benefit from the market appreciation. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
combining that and packaging that for investors that don't necessarily know how to do one or the other or both.
Can you elaborate on what the term purpose-built rental is for
Sure.
anyone that may not know?
Yes. So, sometimes, houses, they become an accidental rental, right? Like the owners can't sell it,
Yeah.
and it becomes a rental to make things work. Now, these are purpose-built rentals in that I'm not developing them for resale for another buyer or
Mm-hmm.
other owners. I'm building them for investors to come in on them, and then they are meant to be held as a rental property.
Yeah.
The particular assets that I do, which are these 8-unit stacked townhouses,
Mm-hmm.
are perfect for that, because they really answer the need for that missing middle housing, that a lot of the government is seeing as the solution to address all of the, I guess, the housing shortage.
Yeah.
Yet it's also perfect for the financing options out there. So for all of those reasons, I do that's what I do.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, obviously you've kind of found what works for you, and I'm sure your systems are great to back that up. Now, I'm sure it's not all just sunshine and roses. So can you talk a little bit about some of the biggest lessons and maybe what you learned, or maybe what you could have even done differently if you could go back and change what you'd done at that time?
Honestly, I don't know that I would do anything differently. I think, looking back, there were definitely times of, at the beginning, a lot of uncertainty. Like, yes, I knew that I should be listening to my gut, and knowing that it's an opportunity to follow my passion,
Yeah.
but it's not a sure thing. There were definitely days when it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I choosing the right path? Because I did want to do coaching from the start as well, but I
Yeah.
instead chosen to do that at a later point. But all of those. And so I think, looking back, I guess I would say, I probably had to go through that, but I would maybe just tell myself that, hey, like, just stick with it, and you'll make it through, because I guess that really is what happened. And if you put one foot in front of the other and just take the next step, you end up really achieving quite a bit. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, well, they say like a lot of your success just comes from the habits and your daily routines, right? So
yes,
I guess then alluding to success,
yeah.
out of everything now that you've done, what would you say you're most proud of and what's like one of your biggest accomplishments?
Um, I'm most proud of just stepping into doing what I need to do.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, you know, maybe lack of confidence, or just fear of being judged, is what stops a lot of people. And I had
Yeah.
all of that as well. But at the end of the day, you still got to get these things done. If I put myself out there and I offer an investment, then I'm going to follow through on that, keep my
Yeah.
word, put myself out there, create the relationships that I need to. So I think, I would say that is the one biggest thing that I am proud of, is that I always have always stepped up where I needed to.
Yeah.
No, I'm not necessarily one where I need to plan 10 years ahead. Never been like that. I don't have this, grandiose plan of who I need to be or where I need to be, but it's always been, you know, what's the next step forward and
Yeah.
going from there.
Yeah. And I think that's huge because in this industry, your reputation is paramount. And if you've got happy investors, then they're going to refer other investors to your projects and stuff like that as well. Right. So
Yeah,
now with that, we're
absolutely.
just going to take a really brief break for our sponsors. And we'll be back in just a moment.
I'm Deanna Boyden, CEO of Real Power, where female investors and entrepreneurs come together to enjoy real content, real connections, and real collaborations. Our events and programs are designed to give women the type of community, the type of support, the type of learning that they need to flourish in this business. We have a 12-month mastermind program starting a fall cohort in October. Also, we have our upcoming Canmore event, October 20th to 22nd in the beautiful Rocky Mountains, featuring a full slate of powerful female speakers, great interactive sessions, and of course our beloved Sequence Social. And if you or someone you know are just looking to get started in real estate investing, be sure to check out the Girlfriend's Guide to Real Estate Investing, kicking off in September of 2023. You can find this and more at real-power.ca. We hope to see you soon.
Upcoming events for Real Power include the Real Power Mastermind Fall Cohort, the Girlfriend's Guide to Real Estate Investing, Real Weekend Fall Retreat in Canmore, and the Real Power Weekend in Palm Springs. To get in touch with Real Power, contact Deanna Boyden, the CEO of Real Power Ladies at deanna@realpower.ca. For more, go to real-power.ca online. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support.
Welcome to Coast Homes Canada. We are Colin and Nicole, the passionate founders. We started this journey because we know that real estate investing may not be easy, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Our education and our relationships have formed the bedrock of our success. We invest time, energy, and care in both. Our portfolio has grown from basement suites and duplexes to apartment buildings and land development, and we're just getting started. Reach out to us to set up a time to chat. You never know where one call will lead you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Carleen Su here, and she's talking about her experience developing purpose-built rentals. And primarily, those are 8-unit stacked townhouses that are specifically built for investors to buy and hold and provide a solution to really what we're experiencing right now, which is a housing supply shortage and a crisis, as some people would say. We talked a little bit about lessons and successes. Now, when you think about obstacles, what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you think that you've faced so far?
So the biggest obstacles is always just kind of continuous problem solving, really. I don't know that there's one biggest one.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it might be the lack of, and it changes throughout. So at the beginning, it might be a lack of knowledge, and there's always like more to learn.
Yeah.
But I was always good about being resourceful and reaching out to different networks, and sometimes it's following even somebody on social media that you actually really believe in, but I wouldn't recommend doing that with a whole bunch of people. Like really focus on one or two key mentors that way.
Yeah.
But also reaching out and pay. I've paid consultancy fees. I'm not always, I don't necessarily think the only thing you need to do is just befriend people and then learn information from them. There also are professional resources out there. And I definitely like to pay them for their time and information. And so that's how at the beginning, it's the knowledge obstacle. But then along the way, it's been scaling as well, right? And building the systems and bringing on the team members necessary.
Yeah. I think a lot of investors have talked about that, the who, not how, and, just figuring out how to surround yourself with the right team and being, to having the confidence to really trust somebody to do some of the work that you would otherwise do yourself, right? I know when I was running my business, that was one of my challenges, that 10 years in, I was still doing a bit of everything. And it was the barrier to our growth. So as soon as I started taking coaching and mentorship and I was able to delegate different things, that's when we really started to see an increase and a lift in our sales and grow our team and things like that. So I think that's common. Everyone kind of goes through those challenges, but obviously if you can find a coach or a mentor, or as you said, a consultant, hopefully you can get where you want to go that much faster and maybe even avoid some of the mistakes that other people can make along the way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you made a good point too, because I think you really the coaching and mentoring is helpful in that it kind of changes your mindset. If you have a small business mindset, well, then you're only going to allow certain things to happen. But if you were like, hold on, I want to run this so that it can eventually run itself. I mean, that's a totally different game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess now when you think about being surrounded by all these different people and whether it is coaches or consultants, what would you say is some of the best advice that you've given or you've been given to date?
I very early on, I was taught, by Patrick Fancy at Rain that, to run your real estate as a business. And, we talk about real estate being a really good alternative or a side business for somebody, even with a 9-to-5 job to have.
Mm-hmm.
But to actually start it with running it as a business in mind really allows you to really, like I said, do things more professionally, hire the right people, because at the end of the day, you may end up not growing from one at all, or you may have 10 and you're running around and really not that happy because now you're the property handyman and you're the property. And that's not the ultimate goal either. So I think right at the very beginning, that was a really good advice in terms of, growing my business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense as well. It's even something I'm trying to wrap my head around as I'm learning and growing is just, setting up the right structure in the beginning because, sometimes people have certain things in their personal name or should they have it in a corporation? And, sometimes people have one corporate property and, there's a lot of things that have legal implications, tax implications, things that can affect your legacy and how things get passed down to your family, and if they can afford to maybe take over your portfolio, depending on, again, how it's structured, right? So I think getting that right professional advice from the get-go so that you don't have to go back and try to fix things from, the standpoint of structure and legal and all of that stuff is super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I guess what kind of things are you working on right now? I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, ooh, like what kind of opportunities does she have? Maybe you can talk about, how that works when you do bring on investors and what that looks like with your projects.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a handful of development projects in Edmonton and Calgary. Basically, like I said, these are the stacked townhomes that are like built for purpose rentals. So why I do that is then investors come in on these projects and we own it together.
Mm-hmm.
Then, they come in at the construction cost. So, it's almost like a pre-construction price. So it's not like we would have to find anything that's already retail. So we already get that uplift that gets shared with the investors.
Mm-hmm.
And then I manage it and run it as a rental as well. So it's hands off for the investors. They get the benefit of being in a development, which are generally provide higher returns.
Yeah.
Because the parts, the sum of its parts is always more than the individual parts. And so but then holding it longer without the hassle of managing the tenants or the property management, et cetera, and the maintenance of the building. So that's what I do. And then they get consistent returns at the end where we actually exit from the property.
Mm-hmm.
We will likely do a sale or perhaps even a refinance, but you get double-digit returns. Yet it's in a really safe asset, in an asset that's also, that has high demand. And so really right now, I'm just super excited about this. There's a lot of people, taking on this strategy as well, because it just offers so many benefits.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want to be a landlord, I don't want to deal with tenants. So it's nice to hear that there's other opportunities for people to consider. And it's also something unique in the sense that you're not buying, just a multifamily property or borrowing something. Like you're taking it literally all the way through from
Mhm.
construction to buying and holding and managing it, and just offering that kind of a unique opportunity and solution maybe for investors that want to get involved, but they don't have the know-how or they don't have the time, and they can obviously reap the rewards by working with you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So now obviously you've had quite an interesting journey with your career. So what would you say is your freedom number? Like at what point do you think you'd look at it like, okay, I've made it, whether that's number of
Right.
doors, cash flow per month, like a certain value to your portfolio?
Gosh, that is such an interesting question. And, I would have to say, and that I don't necessarily have one. And it
Yeah.
does keep changing. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, when I've done those goal exercises, I'm like, oh, okay, I should pick one. But truly, for me, it is more about the lifestyle.
Yeah.
So right now, I am very driven and very incented to just build this and really impact people, and to know that, hey, I've changed the trajectory of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever find the balance off where, hey, it's now taking up too much time from my family, I'm going to readjust. However,
Yeah.
I love what I do, and I really see myself continuing to do projects to like a ripe old age.
Yeah.
I just want it to be 100% by choice.
Yeah.
Right now, I am still growing. I'm still helping my clients grow. So I would definitely say I'm not there yet, but
Yeah.
um, it's in the horizon, and maybe I should pick a number.
Yeah, yeah, I find it really interesting. Obviously, those goals change because sometimes once you get there, it's kind of like, okay, well, what's next? Right. And I think that's what gives people that renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. And it could even be how many people you've impacted to say, I've been able to help 100 people, 1,000 people. Like some people say they want to
Yes.
educate 1,000,000 people. Like they've got these very lofty goals. So it's not necessarily always a self-serving goal in the sense of money or something like that. I mean, for me, when I ran my business, I remember I was at like a mentorship event, and I was so excited to be like, I'm actually taking holidays this year. And it was the most holidays I'd ever taken in 10
Mhm.
years because it was, week one year, nothing the following year. And, I felt chained to the business for the first 10 years. So when I hit that point where I could actually take a bit of a
Mhm.
step back, I remember being, to me, that was this big achievement to be like, I'm actually taking a month's holidays this year. So it obviously is
Exactly.
different for some people. And for me, it was kind of like, how well the business was doing, like, or how much holidays I could take was a reflection of how well the business was
Right.
doing because I could actually take that step back.
Yes, yes, exactly. So there's so many different markers, and I think you need to kind of figure out which one is the one that means more to you. And it changes. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, you know, it's because you had achieved success. That's why the number wasn't even there that much, but it was your commitment. And so
Yeah.
therefore allowing yourself time off was more of the reward, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I guess obviously the name of the podcast is Inspire to
Yeah.
Invest. So, are there
Yeah.
any particular quotes that inspire you or motivate you that you'd like to share with anyone that's watching?
Mhm. One of my favorites, I guess, and it's a Chinese proverb, but it is, I think I have it on my Instagram as well. It's be not afraid of going slowly, um, but instead of standing still. And I really like that because I really think that sometimes there are people out there that just um, perhaps they are ambitious, but because they're so ambitious, their
Mhm.
lofty goals are often the reasons that they're stopped by them, because
Yeah.
they think if they can't get from here to there in X time, or that it may not even be worth the effort. But especially true in real estate, but really in anything, I really
Yeah.
believe in just have to move. You just
Yeah.
have to take action. That's always my biggest message to people too when I coach, because it's never a lack of knowledge, because knowledge is everywhere these days, right?
Yeah.
It's at our fingertips. Um, you can even get AI to teach you something after you ask a question, but
Yeah.
it's not that. It's how do you hack your brain to find out how am I going to take to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And really, it really is every little small step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just breaking it down into those achievable steps,
Yes.
right? And I think there's a quote I heard
Yes.
recently that talks about how, people often underestimate what they can achieve during a certain period of time, then they overestimate what they can do in a shorter
Right.
period of time. So I think
Yes.
just making those little steps each day, or, taking that little bits of action, obviously it kind of adds up in the long run.
Yeah, I think people would be really surprised. And if you trust yourself, that's another thing um, I really would encourage people to do is sometimes it is that lack of confidence, but just trust in yourself, trust in your capabilities, find other areas that you've really been successful in, that you've been able to achieve what you wanted,
Yeah.
and apply that to yourself, telling yourself, hey, like
Yeah.
I was able to do that, I can do this too.
Yeah. And then you'll work hard for 10 years and you'll suddenly look like an overnight success.
Yes,
Yeah.
right? Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of where people can find you, whether it's for opportunities or just to kind of follow along on your journey, what's the best place that they can access you?
I guess my website is probably the best. It's True Capital Real Estate. There's no E in the True. So
Okay.
truecapitalrealestate.com. And I am on Instagram as well, Investor Carleen, um, and on Facebook as well with the
Great.
business
And
page.
we'll
So, you know,
include that, of course, for everyone
sure.
that's following along below. But thank you so much for being here today. And for anyone that's following along, if you've liked what you've seen and you want to see future episodes, please make sure that you've subscribed and you're following along to Inspire to Invest podcast on social. Thanks again.
Thank you, Serena. It was so fun.
Thanks again to Coast Homes and Real Power for bringing you this episode of Inspire to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspire to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals. Thanks again to Coast Homes and Real Power for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest.